1 Samuel chapter number 25. Y'all want to hear something funny? I was telling this earlier. I don't know how we got on it, but I'll tell y'all. It's fresh on my mind. There was an old man, and he went into the nursing home to visit his aunt or grandma or something. She was in there. And you may have heard this story if you ever listened to Jerry Clower. How many ever listened to Jerry Clower? Goes into the nursing home, sits down on the chair, visiting with this old woman in the nursing home. And they're talking away, and he looks over, and on her nightstand, there's a bowl of peanuts. And so he just reaches over, and he grabs him some peanuts, and he just starts popping them in. And when they taste pretty good, so he just reaches over and gets him some more. He just chows down on those peanuts for a little while he's visiting with her. And I think it was his aunt, if I remember correct. And he told her, he said, well, I got to go now. He said, but I'm going to tell you something. I've enjoyed talking to you, and I've enjoyed those peanuts, and I have eaten the whole bowl. And when next time I come back to see you, I'm going to bring you a whole jar of peanuts. And she don't have a tooth in her head. And she looks at him, and she says, honey, she said, I can't chew them things. She said, all I do is suck the chocolate off and put them in that bowl right there. Isn't that pretty good? Wouldn't you die if somebody told you that? I would absolutely, I don't know what I'd do. I would, yeah, it would not be funny. So, 1 Samuel, it's a good start to Samuel, right? Well, David has been having a rough time, hasn't he? And I hope you're enjoying this David series, just verse by verse through his life. And I am loving it. And we're going to cover some more ground tonight. David is being pursued by Saul. He has spared his life. He has poured out his heart to Saul and told him, why are you doing this? You're coming out like chasing a flea. I'm a nobody. And I'm not threatening to you, and I'm not going to raise my hand against the Lord's anointed. And so, of course, Saul changes his mind and goes home and all that kind of stuff. But David he's just in hiding right now at this point in his life. He is not understanding. He's not, most of the time as you read through this narrative, he's not able to live in his native land. He's not in Israel. A lot of times he's in Philistine territory, and he's over in just different countries, Syria and things like that. And he's just running around and just not at peace. And he didn't do anything to deserve it other than stand up and be the man that he was supposed to be. And so there's a lot of lessons that we have learned and drawn out from his life. But I want to pick up tonight in chapter number 25, and we're just going to pick up the narrative. If you want to catch up, you can watch the last month or so of Wednesday nights, and we'll catch you up on the life of David. Chapter 25 starts with the death of Samuel. Remember Samuel? Samuel is the one that anointed David, but he's also the one that anointed Saul. Okay, he is that constant, that man of God in both of their lives, and he has distanced himself up to this point from Saul because God distanced himself from Saul, and he had to be the messenger to let Saul know that the kingdom was going to be taken from him. Verse number 1, and Samuel died, and all the Israelites were gathered together and lamented him and buried him in his house at Ramah. And David arose and went down to the wilderness of Paran. Now, it's a big deal when the man of God dies, but this is going to be a big deal, and you're going to see this probably tonight if we get that far in the life of Saul. It is very important, I think, to have heroes of the faith that you look up to, that you learn from, that mentor you, that help grow you, and all those kind of things. But let me tell you something. Don't live vicariously through somebody else's walk with God, because one day they can be gone. Saul depended on Samuel. Samuel was taken from him, and what you're going to see in just a little while is then Saul can't get a hold of God. And that is a very scary, crazy place to be in your life. So develop your own walk with God. Don't live vicariously through somebody else's walk. Verse number 2, and there was a man in Maon whose possessions were in Carmel. He had 3,000 sheep, 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife, Abigail, and she was a woman of good understanding and of a beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings, and he was of the house of Caleb. And David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep. And David sent out 10 young men, and David said unto the young men, get you up to Carmel and go to Nabal and greet him in my name. And thus shall you say to him that liveth in prosperity, peace be both to thee, and peace be to thine house, and peace be unto all that thou hast. And now I have heard that thou hast shearers. Now thy shepherds which were with us, we hurt them not, neither was there aught missing unto them all the while they were in Carmel. Ask thy young men, and they will show thee. Wherefore, let the young men find favor in thine eyes, for we come in a good day. Give, I pray thee, whatsoever cometh to thine hand unto thy servants and to thy son David. Now, so if you read that and study it, here's what's going on. There is a guy by the name of Nabal. He has a wife by the name of Abigail. Nabal is very wealthy, has a lot of sheep, things like that, a lot of cattle, a lot of flocks, and very wealthy guy in this society. Well, David finds out that he is shearing his sheep in a place called Carmel or Carmel. And so what David does is he sends 10 guys that work for him. Remember, David is living as a nomad out in the middle of the wilderness, but he has several hundred man army. It ranged, what we talked last week, from about 400 and it grew to about 600. He's got about 600 men with him that draw the sword, and all their wives and all their kids. There's a big following. He's got a small army with him out in the middle of nowhere. Well, David sends 10 of those guys that were with him to Nabal. And here's what had happened, okay? So Nabal had all of these flocks, and they had been interwoven into the area that David was. And so what David had done was he had provided protection to Nabal's flocks, okay, for some time. And David wanted to be compensated for what he had done. He's out in the middle of nowhere. He's got to eat somehow. He's got to take care of his family. He's got to survive somehow. So he sends 10 men to Nabal, and they talk to him and say, you live in prosperity. We've watched over your stuff. Nothing was hurt while we were with them. And so what they asked for, verse number 8 is, whatsoever cometh to thine hand unto thy servants, whatsoever cometh to thine hand unto thy servants and to thy son David. So give to David and basically compensate us for what we did for you. Verse number 9, and when David's young men came, they spake to Nabal according to all those words in the name of David, and ceased. And Nabal answered David's servants and said, who is David? And who is the son of Jesse? There be many servants nowadays that break away every man from his master. So what he does is he just kind of smarts off. So who's David? I know a lot of guys that used to work for somebody and they've split off from their boss. That's a little slight at David and Saul's split. Who's David? So he doesn't respect David. And so he says, verse 11, shall I then take my bread and my water and my flesh that I have killed from my shearers and give it unto men whom I know not whence they be? I don't know you guys, and I don't owe you anything. And so there's this rift between David and Nabal, or the men that David sent. So David's young men turned their way and went again and came and told him all those sayings. Now, one thing that you need to know about David is he ain't gonna take much lip off nobody, okay? You see the David who's very humble and like, hey, Saul, here's part of your garment. I cut it off. I could have killed you, but I love you. I'm not gonna, I've never done anything to hurt you. And then there's this David. There's the David like, I don't know you no money. You did this. And David's like, okay, I'm gonna kill you. Okay, so watch this. And David said unto his men, gird ye on every man his sword. And they girded on every man his sword, and David also girded on his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abode by the stuff. Okay, so basically they took care of the details back home, and 400 went with him. And one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, behold, David sent messengers out to the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. So get the story. You got Nabal, who's the rich guy. His wife is Abigail. David sends the messengers to Nabal. Nabal smarts off to him. They come back, tell David. But one of the guys that works for Nabal told Nabal's wife, Abigail, that he railed on David's messengers, okay? So watch what happens. But the men were very good unto us, and we were not hurt, neither missed we anything, as long as we were conversant with them when we were in the field. So basically, he's vouching for David's story, that these guys really helped us out and watched over us while we were out in the fields and watching over these flocks. They were a wall unto us both by night and day, all the while we were with them, keeping the sheep. Now, therefore, know and consider what thou wilt do, for evil is determined against our master and against all his household, for he is such a son of Belial that a man cannot speak to him. So this guy that works for Nabal is telling Nabal's wife, look, your husband cannot be dealt with. These guys really did do a lot for us, and they're just asking for some compensation. And now evil is determined against our master and against all his household, because he's such a son of Belial, or basically he's such a works for the devil, like he's just got the devil all over him, and you can't talk to him, okay? So he tells Nabal's wife, Abigail. Then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves and 2 bottles of wine and 5 sheep ready dressed, and 5 measures of parched corn, and 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on asses. Now, I don't know, she must have got to baking pretty quick, 200, right? And that ain't enough to drink to wash down 200 loaves of bread, I'm just gonna tell you. But anyway, so put them on the donkeys, and she said unto her servants, go on before me now, behold, I come after you. But she told not her husband Nabal. So she sent supplies to David. So what she's trying to do here is play peacemaker, okay? Because David is on his way to deal with Nabal for smarting off to him. So she loads down the asses or the donkeys and sends them to them. And then here's what she does. She says, I'll go on before. And it was so, verse 20, as she rode on the ass, that she came down by the covert of the hill. And behold, David and his men came down against her, and she met them. So she hops on a donkey, starts riding, sends her boys with all the supplies, and she runs right in to David. Now, David had said, surely in vain have I kept all that this fellow hath in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that pertained unto him. And he hath requited me evil for good. So he's basically saying, I shouldn't have watched over that guy's stuff. We shouldn't have done that, because I've done good to him, and here he's slandering me and won't pay me what he owes me and things like that. So and more also do God unto the enemies of David. So this is David's frame of mind. So and more also do God unto the enemies of David, if I leave all that pertain to him by the morning light, any that pisseth against the wall, okay? So, yeah, there's that word, okay? So let's just get that out. We're all grown up, right? David's pretty upset. Basically, I am not going to leave anybody alive that works for Nabal or has anything to do with it. I'm going to wipe them out. And when Abigail saw David, so she runs right into him, she hasted and lighted off the ass and fell before David on her face and bowed herself to the ground and fell at his feet and said, upon me, my Lord, upon me let this iniquity be. And let thine handmaid, I pray thee, speak in thine audience and hear words of thine handmaid. So she humbles herself, falls before David and says, let this be on me and let me have a word with you. Let not my Lord, I pray thee, regard this man of Belial, even Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. So this is his own wife talking to him. This Nabal must have been quite a character and just not a good guy, just not a good dude. But I, thine handmaid, saw not the young men of my Lord whom thou didst send. She said, I didn't see them when they come to talk to my husband. And, basically saying I wouldn't have let him talk to them like that. Now, therefore, my Lord, as the Lord liveth and as thy soul liveth, seeing the Lord hath withholden thee from coming to shed blood and from avenging thyself with thine own hand, now let thine enemies and they that seek evil to my Lord be as Nabal. Okay, so basically she's trying to get him to stop and say, look, God sent me here to stop you from going and doing and killing Nabal. And now this blessing which thine handmaid hath brought unto my Lord, let it be given unto the young men that follow my Lord. So take all these supplies, the bread, the wine, the raisins, all the stuff, the figs, and let it be given to the young men. I pray thee, forgive the trespass of thine handmaid, for the Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house, because my Lord fighteth the battles of the Lord, and evil hath not been found in thee all thy days. So she knows who David is, and basically says a blessing over her. What sticks out to me is she takes the heat for it. She takes the blame for what her husband did and the disrespect that he showed to David. Yet a man is risen to pursue thee and to seek thy soul, but the soul of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of life with the Lord thy God. That's a beautiful little phrase there, isn't it? Thy soul, the soul of my Lord, shall be bound in the bundle of life with the Lord my God, and the souls of thine enemies, them shall he sling out as out of the middle of a sling. And it shall come to pass when the Lord shall have done to my Lord according to all the good that he hath spoken concerning thee, and shall have appointed thee ruler over Israel, that this shall be no grief unto thee, nor offense or hard unto my Lord, either that thou hast shed blood causeless, or that my Lord hath avenged himself. But when the Lord shall have dealt well with my Lord, then remember thine handmaid. So basically she's like, look, one day you're going to be king, and this ain't going to be a big deal. And you know what? You don't want to do something that you're going to regret later and kill a bunch of people and all that kind of stuff. So you know what? When you become king, remember your handmaid. I know my husband is a bad guy and all this kind of stuff. So she's just humbling herself and talking to David. Here's what David says. And David said to Abigail, blessed be the Lord God of Israel, which sent thee this day to meet me. And blessed be thy advice, and blessed be thou, which hast kept me this day from coming to shed blood, and from avenging myself with mine own hand. For in very deed, as the Lord God of Israel liveth, which hath kept me back from hurting thee, except thou hadst hasted and come to me to meet me, surely there had not been left unto Nabal by the morning light any that pisseth against the wall. So David's like, this is what I was going to do, okay? But you came to me and you stopped me. Blessed be you for doing that. So David received of her hand that which she had brought him, and said unto her, go up in peace to thine house. See, I have hearkened to thy voice and have accepted thy person. And Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he held a feast in his house like the feast of a king. So, man, he thinks he's a king. He thinks he's the stuff, right? So he's got a big feast going. And Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was well drunken. Wherefore she told him nothing, less or more, until the morning light. But it came to pass in the morning, when the wine was gone out of Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, watch this, that his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. And it came to pass about 10 days after that the Lord smote Nabal, and he died. So here is Nabal that disrespected David. I guess God really liked David, okay? Because like that he didn't even have to go up there and do anything to anybody, Nabal or anybody. But as soon as Nabal was told by Abigail, his wife, after he woke up from his drunken stupor, she's like, look, David was on his way to kill you yesterday, and I stopped him, and I gave him and gave his men stuff. You shouldn't have done that, his heart stops within him. I don't know if he had a stroke or a heart, whatever, but he became like a stone, probably unconscious, maybe in a coma or whatever. 10 days later, dies, okay? That goes back to David's mentality a lot of times. What was it? Let God deal with the enemies. Let God deal with the enemies. And when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, blessed be the Lord that hath pleaded the cause of my reproach from the hand of Nabal. I like it. He was like, yep, I guess God dealt with that one, right? And hath kept his servant from evil. For the Lord hath returned the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head. And David sent and communed with Abigail to take her to him to wife. So he said, God's avenged me of my enemy. And then he sent and he took Abigail as his own wife. And when the servants of David were come to Abigail to Carmel, they spake unto her, saying, David sent us unto thee to take thee to him to wife. And she arose and bowed herself on her face to the earth and said, behold, let thine handmaid be a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord. And Abigail hasted and arose and rode upon an ass with 5 damsels of hers. That's a lot of people on one donkey. With 5 damsels of hers that went. Y'all read it literally too? Yeah, I'm just teasing. This is how I read the Bible, okay? of hers that went after her, and she went after the messengers of David and became his wife. Verse 43 and 44, and David also took Ahinoam of Jezreel, and they were also both of them his wives. But Saul had given Michal, his daughter, David's wife, to Phalti, the son of Laish, which was of Galem. So I'm telling you, it's a soap opera, right? Okay, so David was married to Michal, Saul's daughter. He was the son-in-law to the king, but then all this rift between them. And so Saul takes Michal and gives her to somebody else, and then David marries her, and then he's like, oh yeah, her too. And then like he's got two, okay? And so that's the life of David going on at this point, okay? A lot of people, have you ever wondered that? Let's just talk about it, right? Right? There's all this like plural marriage, they got, Solomon, my goodness, like all these women and all this kind of stuff. Is God okay with that, Brandon? Listen to me, okay? I want to tell you, because I've been asked that question a lot over the years, and I just want to kind of give you what I think is a biblical response to it. No, he's not. I believe God's intent is for one man and one woman, okay, to be united in matrimony on the side of God, and that's what's supposed to happen, and that they are not supposed to tear it apart, okay? Doesn't always happen, obviously, but that's God's plan, okay? Now, with the plural marriages and multiple wives and all this kind of stuff, God put up with it. Let me just say it like that. God, okay, Abraham, multiple women, David, multiple women. I get it, all right? It was common in their culture. Okay, so it was more accepted. It's kind of like, to us, right? But God, even though it wasn't his original design, he put up with it. Now, I want you to think about this. How much does he put up with from you? You see what I'm saying? He puts up with a lot of your stuff. It's like, well, I don't think God should bless David because he had multiple wives. Well, he's going to get more as the story. I'm just going to tell you, okay? He's getting more, all right? Okay? And he has kids by all of them. It's okay. But God's original intent was not that, but God blessed them anyway. It's kind of like Abraham when he was told to leave Ur of the Chaldees, head to the promised land. I'm going to make a great nation out of you. And God's like, hey, leave your father and your mother and all your kindred and then go. And he's like, okay, I'll go. Come on, Dad. And he like breaks like half of what God told him to do, but he's headed in the right direction. Thank God for his mercy that in his long-suffering nature, that doesn't hold us to the strictest of standards and a lot of times allows us to be headed in the right direction and puts up with some of our stuff, right? Okay, that's how you view that, but it was never God's intent. And let me say it always, or usually, you can't say usually always, right? Most of the stories in the Old Testament, it caused major drama, okay? Major drama in Solomon's life, major drama in David's life. Go read Abraham's story, right? Here, have a baby by Hagar. And it was her idea, and then she gets mad. Okay, it's not good, all right? So there's the biblical way to look at that. Chapter 26, okay, here we go. And the Ziphites, you remember them from last week? Probably not, okay? And the Ziphites came into Saul to Gibeah, saying, doth not David hide himself in the hill of Hachilah, which is before Jeshimon? Then Saul arose and went down to the wilderness of Ziph. Now, remember this. The last time we picked up from Saul, Saul had said, David, you're better than I am, right? Because he had spared his life. And then he went home and David stayed in hiding. Remember, that's what we were talking about last week. Well, now the Ziphites are like, hey, I hear David's over here. People are always stirring up Saul to go after David again. And here he falls for it. Verse 2, then Saul arose and went down to the wilderness of Ziph, having 3,000 chosen men of Israel with him to seek David in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul pitched in the hill of Hachilah, which is before Jeshimon, by the way, but David abode in the wilderness. And he saw that Saul came after him into the wilderness. David therefore sent out spies and understood that Saul was come in very deed. And David arose and came to the place where Saul had pitched. Okay, so David is in the wilderness. Saul comes to the wilderness with 3,000 guys, pitches his camp. And David arose and came to the place where Saul had pitched. And David beheld the place where Saul lay. And Abner, the son of Ner, the captain of his host, and Saul lay in the trench, and the people round about him. So here they're camped. There's a trench. Saul's asleep in the trench. Abner, who's like his chief military guy, Saul's chief military guy, is there. And all the guys are camped around Saul. He's in the middle for protection. David's looking down, sees this, sees where they're at, and is watching all this happen, okay? Then answered David and said to Ahimelech the Hittite and to Abishai the son of Zeruiah, brother to Joab, saying, who will go down with me to Saul to the camp? And Abishai said, I will go down with thee. So David says, here's what he says. He's looking down on this camp, 3,000 guys, Saul in the middle, okay? And David says, who will go down there with me? I'm going to go down there. I'm going to go there. Now, I don't know about you, but that's kind of crazy, okay? Because who are they looking for? David, right? And he's like, I got a great idea. Let's go down there. Anybody want to go with me? Well, Abishai says he'll go. So David and Abishai came to the people by night, and behold, Saul lay sleeping within the trench, and his spear stuck in the ground at his bolster. I think he probably like scooted up next to it and just like hugged it and all that. He loves that spear, doesn't he? Everywhere you see Saul, he's got that spear, right? Count how many times it talks about that stinking spear, right? All the time, right? So he's got his spear stuck in the ground at his bolster, and but Abner and the people lay about him. Then said Abishai to David, God hath delivered thine enemy into thine hand this day. Now, therefore, let me smite him, I pray thee, with a spear, even to the earth at once, and I will not smite him the second time. It will only take me one fell swoop, and there he is. Yeah, there again, David, God's delivered him into your hand. There he is. Now, if I'm David, you know what I'm thinking? Here's what I'm thinking. I let Saul go last time to make a point that I'm not the bad guy here, and I let you go to show good faith, and like, I'm not out to kill you. I don't want to hurt you. I don't wish you ill, all that kind of stuff. And then I'm thinking in the back of my head, here's what Brandon's thinking if Brandon is David. I let him go last time, but here he is again because I was supposed to kill him last time, right? Clearly, right? I'm supposed to kill him this time. Well, that is what Abishai says. And he goes, let me just stick him right there to the ground. Okay. And David said to Abishai, destroy him not, for who can stretch forth his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? David said, furthermore, as the Lord liveth, the Lord shall smite him. Okay. Some things have to come from God. Okay. David understood that. Here's the king. He's anointed. He's anointed with the same anointing that I'm anointed with. He's not going to be king forever. I know that. God has told me that. God has anointed me. But still, it is not my role, not my job, not my decision when that happens. I will not kill him. That is wisdom. That is submission to God. And that is, you know what that is? That is wisdom to principles. Okay? Principles. The Bible will give you principles with which to live your life, okay? The principle here is it's never right to do wrong, okay? There it is. Do it, okay? Because God will take care of him. And there's that principle that we talked about last week as well. When you don't know what to do and you can't do anything about it, what do? You go to God and you let him take care of that. Okay. Now, a lot of times in my life, I've seen burdened people like slip out of their seat and come to an altar to pray because they got something heavy on them. And I've always heard this. I took my burden and I just gave it to God. I just laid it down at the altar and I'm not going to pick it back up. Okay. Now, let me tell you something. You may be able to do that. I have never been able to do that. Okay, when something's on you and you're praying on it and you're struggling with it and you're wrestling with it and you need God to come through and you need God to do this and all that kind of stuff, I've never been a come lay it down kind of guy and then I'm just going to leave it here because you know what I mean? Anybody else wired like that? Like I'm picking it up, taking it home with me. I'm going to talk to you on the way to car about it. I'm going to talk to you at home about it. Okay, we talking about this thing, God. I am not leaving it with you, okay? That is not what I'm going to do. Okay. David had to struggle with those things and he had to have that on there, but those feelings and those emotions. But what did he come away with? As the Lord liveth, the Lord shall smite him, or his day shall come to die, or he shall descend into battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I should stretch forth mine hand against the Lord's anointed, but I pray thee, take thou now the spear that is at his bolster and the cruse of water, and let us go. Now, I also have an inkling here that Saul really liked that spear, right? So what does David take? Right? Just to like spear him a little bit in the side, right? Ha, 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 right? Pun intended. So he takes his spear, takes the cruse of water, okay, and basically his Yeti cup, right, okay, and let us go. So David took the spear and the cruse of water from Saul's bolster, and they gat them away, and no man saw it nor knew it, neither awaked, for they were all asleep because a deep sleep from the Lord was fallen upon them. So apparently there's this thing in God's arsenal that he can do to make deep sleep come on like 3,000 people at once and you won't wake up. Maybe he told David that, which was why David's confident, like, let's go down there. Probably David got back to camp and was like, yeah, God told me that he was going to put a deep sleep on him. I'm not crazy enough to go down there like without it, but God told me that, so I went, okay? And then I wouldn't tell Abishai, though. I would just make him think he's brave, right? Okay, that's just me, okay? Then David went over to the other side and stood on the top of an hill afar off, and a great space being between them. And David cried to the people and to Abner, the son of Ner, saying, answerest thou not, Abner? Then Abner answered and said, who art thou that criest to the king? And David said to Abner, art thou not a valiant man? And who is like thee in Israel? Wherefore then hast thou not kept thy lord the king? For there came one of the people in to destroy the king thy lord. This thing is not good that thou hast done. As the Lord liveth, ye are worthy to die, because ye have not kept your master, the Lord's anointed. And now see where the king's spear is and the cruse of water that was at his bolster. So he hollers down, has a conversation with Abner, who's supposed to be the chief guy that's going to protect Saul. And he's like, uh-oh, you messed up. Guess what? You deserve to die. You didn't watch over your master. Hey, look around for his spear. Look around for his water bottle. Look around, okay? And Saul knew David's voice. Of course he does, right? And said, is this thy voice, my son David? Right? That just ticks me off. Is that you, my boy? Right? You're like chasing him all over the place to kill him. Son, is that you? Right. Not a big Saul fan, okay? Is this thy voice, my son David? And David said, it is my voice, my Lord, O king. And he said, wherefore doth my Lord thus pursue after his servant? For what have I done, or what evil is in mine hand? Now therefore I pray thee, let my lord the king hear the words of his servant. If the Lord have stirred thee up against me, let him accept an offering. But if they be the children of men, cursed be they before the Lord. So David's basically saying, if God told you to come after me, here I am, accept this offering, okay? But if it's somebody else, like the Ziphites, stirring you up to come after me and keep it, hey, guess what? He says to him, cursed be they before the Lord, for they have driven me out this day from abiding in the inheritance of the Lord, saying, go serve other gods. He goes, I can't even go home. My family's displaced. I can't be where my family has inherited their land. Can't even be there. Now, therefore, let not my blood fall to the earth before the face of the Lord. For the king of Israel has come out to seek a flea, as when one doth hunt a partridge in the mountains. Then said Saul, I have sinned. Here he is coming to himself. God, I'm sorry, right? I've sinned. Return, my son David. No, for I will no more do thee harm, because my soul was precious in thine eyes this day. Behold, I have played the fool and have erred exceedingly. And David answered and said, behold the king's spear, and let one of the young men come over and fetch it. Isn't it crazy? Here's Saul. It's always the same thing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, you're right. You're right. You're right. You ever seen people like that? Right? David's smart. David's smart. Okay. Well, I told you last week, David said, he accepted Saul's apology and I'm not going to kill you anymore. And he went home. Where'd David go? He went back to hiding. Okay. Because when people show you, I hate to quote Michelle Obama, but she said, when people show us who they are, believe them, or something like that. I think it was her or Hillary. I hate to quote either one of them, but anyway, when people show you who they are, believe them, okay? The Lord render to every man his righteousness and his faithfulness, for the Lord delivered thee into my hand today, but I would not stretch forth mine hand against the Lord's anointed. And behold, as my life, as thy life was much set by this day in mine eyes, so let my life be much set by in the eyes of the Lord, and let him deliver me out of all tribulation. So David responds, and he's basically like the Lord, deal with thee. Then Saul said to David, blessed be thou, my son David, thou shalt both do great things and also shalt still prevail. So David went on his way, and Saul returned to his place. So it's this back and forth seesaw of emotion with Saul. And David said in his heart, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. I want you to see this right here. I want you to see this shift in him, okay? So here's David, just been pursued, just spared Saul's life the second time. And then the next verse says, and David said in his heart, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. He has reached a point of like despair. Like, this is never going to end. Like, one of these days, he's going to kill me, okay? So I want you to see that, because as confident as David, here's the thing you need to know about strong, faithful people. As confident as David was, okay, in God, he still had fear. He's still worried, and he still didn't know. Just because you say, I'm going to trust God in this, okay, and you're going to trust God to work it out, and you're going to trust God to take care of it, doesn't mean that you're not skeptical if God's going to do it or not. Okay? Faithful people, godly people, are people that put their trust in the Lord despite of their feelings, despite of their worry, despite of their fear, despite of all the troubles on their mind. You do the right thing. You be what you're supposed to be. You go where you're supposed to go. You do what you're supposed to do in spite of how you feel. He's very troubled right here. Okay. And in fact, he's so troubled that here's what he says. There's nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape into the land of the Philistines. Now, listen to me. There is no bigger enemy to Israel and Israelites than the Philistines. So if you're in that bad of a place that you think it's a good idea to go hang out with your mortal enemies, okay, you're in a pretty bad place. That's where David was. So, and Saul shall despair of me to seek me anymore in any coast of Israel, so shall I escape out of his hand. So his big plan is, I'm going to leave Israel. I'm just going to leave this whole area, right? I'm going to go down to the land of the Philistines. He's not going to come down there and he'll forget about me, okay? So that's his new plan. Why? Because one day he's going to kill me, okay? And David arose and passed over with the 600 men that were with him unto Achish, the son of Maoch, king of Gath. Remember him? Remember when David acted crazy and all that kind of stuff? Well, we're back full circle there, okay? And David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household, even David with his two wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess and Abigail the Carmelitess, Nabal's wife. And it was told Saul that David was fled to Gath, and he sought no more again for him. And David said unto Achish, if I have now found grace in thine eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country that I may dwell there. For why should thy servant dwell in the royal city with thee? So he asked Achish, he's like, can you give me a little piece of land out in the country? I shouldn't live in the king's, in the king's place in the royal city. Then Achish gave him Ziklag that day. So that is a city, Ziklag that day. Wherefore Ziklag pertaineth unto the kings of Judah unto this day. And the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was a full year and 4 months. So he's down there for 16 months in the land of the Philistines. And David and his men went up and invaded the Geshurites and the Gezrites and the Amalekites. For those nations were of old the inhabitants of the land, as thou goest to Shur, even unto the land of Egypt. And David smote the land and left neither man nor woman alive, and took away the sheep and the oxen and the asses and the camels and the apparel, and returned and came to Achish. And Achish said, whither have ye made a road today? And David said, against the south of Judah, and against the south of the Jerahmeelites, and against the south of the Kenites. And David saved neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath, saying, lest they should tell on us, saying, so did David, and so will be his manner all the while he dwelleth in the country of the Philistines. So if you're reading that and you're like, what in the world's going on? Here's what David's doing. He goes and he goes against the Amalekites and a couple other tribes, and he goes and raids and pillages and makes war against them and annihilates them and leaves no survivors. But then he goes back to Achish, and Achish says, what have you been doing? He goes, well, I've been fighting against the southern part of Judah and all this kind of stuff. And he lies to him. Okay? He tells them, I've been over here fighting, when he's actually been over here fighting and pillaging because he doesn't want them to know. And he kills everybody over here, so they ain't nobody to tell the story. Okay? So that's what David was up to. Okay? And Achish believed David, saying, he hath made his people Israel utterly to abhor him, therefore he shall be my servant forever. So what David is saying is, I'm fighting against like southern Israel. I'm fighting, Israel kicked me out, so I'm gonna fight them. But in reality, he was not lifting his hand against Israel. He wouldn't do that. He was fighting over here and raiding the enemies of Israel and kind of sweeping up the mess so they don't have to do it, but he was lying and telling Achish something different. Now, watch this though. It's about to get complicated because the Philistines and Israel are about to go to war. And where's David? He is living with the Philistines. Okay, so watch what happens. And it came to pass in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for warfare to fight with Israel. And Achish, lost my spot. And Achish said unto David, know thou assuredly that thou shalt go out with me to battle, thou and thy men. So Achish thinks that he's got David in his back pocket, that he's been fighting Israel already, but David's actually been lying to him, okay? So he tells David, I'm going to war with Israel, and guess who's coming with me? You, okay? So this is a complication, right? So watch what happens. And David said to Achish, surely thou shalt know what thy servant can do. And Achish said to David, therefore will I make thee keeper of mine head forever. So he said, you know what? I like you. I'm going to make you basically my personal protector from here on. And David did not refuse to go fight Israel. Now watch this. And David, now verse number 3, now Samuel was dead. Now watch this. This is a sad part right here. Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had lamented him and buried him in Ramah, even in his own city. And Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. And the Philistines gathered themselves together and came and pitched in Shunem. And Saul gathered all Israel together, and they pitched in Gilboa. And when Saul saw the host of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart greatly trembled. And when Saul inquired of the Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets. So here's what happens, okay? Samuel has died. The Philistines are coming. They are coming in so much number that when Saul sees what's coming into his land, he is scared to death. And now he no longer has the man of God to go to because Samuel is dead, okay? And here's the crazy part. And when Saul inquired of the Lord answered him not. He had distanced himself so far from God, okay, that God didn't listen to him anymore. What a man, right? That's crazy. Now, let me say this to you. You say, Brandon, can I distance myself so far from God that God is not going to listen to me anymore? Let me say a word about that. God is always with you, okay? Can you allow sin to drag you so far away, okay, that you feel disconnected from God? Yes, you can. You know that God is close, but I want you to notice, here's what I want to point out to you, one word, attitude. Saul's attitude is, God is a genie in a bottle, let me rub his belly and have him pop out and do a miracle for me, right? He has never, right, gone to God and said, I'm wrong, I should have done this and this and this. He did not humble himself, so is it any wonder he could not hear the voice of God? Now, if Saul had been repentant, I believe God would have counseled him, listened to him, would not have let him keep the kingdom, but would have heard him. So you can find yourself in a place where you're not getting answers from God, and a lot of times that is because of our own rebellion. Okay? Now, sometimes there's times that, man, you can be close to God and you don't feel like he's talking to you or listening to you or all that kind of stuff. And you cling to his promises that he's never going to leave you and forsake you, right? But in this instance, God did not answer Saul on purpose. Okay? Now, notice the part also that there has been a law made in Israel that there can be nobody that has a familiar spirit, a demon-possessed person, somebody that has a spirit of divination, okay? And wizards out of the land. Now, what are all these things? Wizards and divination, all that kind of stuff. Okay, it is those that would, let me just throw out a couple things. Those fortune tellers, people that would attempt to tell you your future, those that would do magic and sorcery and practice witchcraft and things like that. Saul had banned that, which was a good thing, and you were not allowed, it carried with it the death penalty by all indications from what we read. Okay, so he had done all that. That's why the Bible is always very clear that we are not to engage with any type of divination, sorcery, things that, listen, if somebody tells you they can contact your dead relative and you can talk to them and all that kind of stuff, do not do that. There used to be a TV show, remember? They contact that. Listen to me. That has its roots in the spirit world. That stuff is very, very real. Doors can be opened that you do not want to open. That is real stuff. You do not do it. Listen to me. You do not do the astrology, the palm reading. Somebody wants to read your palm, tell you your future, tell them to take a hike. Don't you go to Gatlinburg and walk in a little shop and say, oh, I'm going to go do this. No, I'm serious. Don't you do that. Don't you open that door to something telling you the future, or don't you do that, okay? Don't you expose your kids to that. Don't you expose your family to that. Don't you expose anybody to that. You got to watch that stuff. Now, I'll tell you this. I go a step further. You got to watch what you do and what you watch and things like that. You people that are into all this horror movie and stuff like that, I'm going to tell you, you want to watch possession movies and people getting, not me. Why don't you want to watch it, Brandy? Don't you like to be scared? No, I don't, okay? I don't want to be scared. I don't want to watch it. Why would you want to watch that crap when you can watch a good Western, okay? That's what I always say, okay? Why would you want to do that? But here, listen, I don't rule out that you can open doors by getting interested in the occult and getting interested in dark things like that. Be very, very careful. Be very careful with your kids getting into that. Be careful with the music that they listen to and that you allow them to listen to. Some of that stuff can get very, very dark, and you don't want to go down. Saul had said, no more. Now watch this, though. So God's not talking to him, so watch what Saul does. Then said Saul unto his servants, seek me a woman that hath a familiar spirit. So he tells his guys, go find me someone who has a connection with a familiar spirit, and I want to inquire of him, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servants said to him, behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit at Endor. And Saul disguised himself and put on other raiment, and he went and 2 men with him, and they came to the woman by night. And he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit. So this woman has got a demon, okay? She is connecting with a demon. And let me say something to you. You go and connect with people, okay, that can, say they're going to get you this or get you answers, things like that. The biggest intelligence gathering organization in the world is not the CIA. It's not the Mossad. You know who it is? It's Satan's forces. They watch you. They know your family. They know generation upon generation. They've been around. This ain't their first day on the job. Okay. So can people know things about you and you go inquire? Well, how did they know that? That has to be. No, listen, you are interacting with something in the spirit world, be it a demon or whatever. Okay. I don't want to get real out in the weeds here, but he goes and he asks her, I pray thee divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me him up whom I shall name unto thee. I want you to see how desperate Saul is. He said he goes to a witch, the witch at Endor, okay? And he says, I want you to call up somebody from the dead, okay? Whoever I tell you. And the woman said unto him, behold, thou knowest what Saul hath done, how he hath cut off those that have familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life to cause me to die? You do know there's a death penalty on what you're asking me to do. Saul has made that the death penalty. And Saul sware to her by the Lord, saying, as the Lord liveth, there shall no punishment happen to thee for this thing. Okay? How can he promise that? Well, he's Saul, right? The guy that made the law, right? So he makes her a promise. Then said the woman, whom shall I bring up unto thee? And she said, bring me up Samuel. He is so desperate to hear from God that he wants a witch to bring up the spirit of Samuel, who has died, from Sheol, the place of holding for the souls at that time. Bring him up so he can talk to Samuel and find out what to do. Holy cow, right? It's crazy stuff. Now, watch what happens and we'll talk about it. And when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice, and the woman spake to Saul, saying, why hast thou deceived me? For thou art Saul. Now, I don't know what gave it away, but she calls up, however she did this little ritual, seance, whatever it was, calls up Samuel's spirit from the grave. And when she does, she realizes it's Saul. She screams and she says, why hast thou deceived me? For thou art Saul. And the king said unto her, be not afraid, for what sawest thou? He's like, don't. We'll talk about that later. What'd you see? Okay. What sawest thou? And the woman said unto Saul, I saw, watch this, gods ascending out of the earth. Now, how many of your translations says gods? Okay. All right. Anybody say anything else? Spirit. Okay. Divine being. What are you reading out of? What? NASB? Okay. Divine being. I want to make a point there because in the King James, the word gods, little g, is used. Okay. And a lot of times people read that and they'll be like, well, Brandon, the witch calls Samuel up, and when Samuel comes up, she says she sees gods coming up, okay? That is a Hebrew word there, gods. That is the word, and a lot of people don't understand this, and I want to clarify it because I think it's worth learning. I'm thankful that I learned it. It is the word Elohim, okay? Elohim. Anybody recognize the word Elohim? What do we always say? Well, that's God's name, okay? Listen to me very carefully. There's a great book called The Unseen Realm. I'm going to recommend it to you. The Unseen Realm, it's by a guy who is now in heaven. His name is Dr. Michael Heiser. He is a Hebrew textual scholar, and he wrote this book. It is the book on the spirit realm. If you want to do, you'll learn, your mind will be blown if you go down that rabbit hole, okay? The Unseen Realm, okay? But he talks about this, and he talks about this word Elohim, okay? Elohim basically means what you just said there, Diane, spirit beings, okay? Spirit beings, okay? So in the spiritual world, there are Elohim, okay? Now, listen to me. There is a most high Elohim who rules over all other spiritual beings. He is God, okay? But I want you to understand that. You ever read your Bible and it says, Most High God? Why does it say that? Well, I didn't think there was any other gods. There's only one God. Most High Elohim, okay? Elohim is spiritual beings, okay? All spiritual beings are Elohim. There is a Most High Elohim that rules over all of them, and that is God, okay? That's the Lord. So, study that out. You'll read that book. It'll help you on that a lot, okay? Now, back to the story. So she calls up Samuel, and she says, I saw him, and he said unto her, what form is he of? So what does he look like? And she said, an old man cometh up, and he is covered with a mantle. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel, and he stooped with his face to the ground and bowed himself, okay? So Saul wanted to talk to Samuel, and it appears that he is. Now, I want to tell you two arguments right here that happened, and I want to tell you where I come down on it, okay? So you have a witch, right, calling up a spirit, all right? And the first thing I'm going to tell you to do is don't let a witch call up a spirit or talk to your dead people, because you're actually communicating with demons, and they're not talking to the spirits of the dead, right? That's what I'm going to warn you about. So here's the question. Did this witch really call up the spirit of Samuel? Is this Samuel, or does Saul just think it's Samuel because it says, and Saul perceived, okay, that it was Samuel? Now I'm going to tell you what I think. I think the reason God does not want you communicating with the dead or people doing that is because it's possible. That's what I think. You can throw tomatoes at me or whatever, okay? I believe that in the spirit world, we don't know what can happen out there and that's why God just don't do it. He doesn't want it, okay? Now, either this is Samuel or this is a demonic form impersonating Samuel. I personally believe that this witch called up Samuel. I believe it's Samuel, okay? You can disagree with that. That's fine, okay? You've probably been wrong before and you'll be wrong again. It's okay. No, but I believe it's Samuel, and I want to tell you why. Because she calls him up. He's an old man, okay? He has a mantle, so he looks the part. It's not just like a voice coming and not seeing anybody, right? So that's part of it. And he stooped with his face to the ground and bowed himself. And Samuel said to Saul, so here he is seeing him, okay? And having a conversation with him. And he falls down on the ground before him, okay? And Samuel says to him, and based on the conversation of what Samuel says is why I believe it is Samuel. Here's what he says. Why hast thou disquieted me to bring me up? Why'd you like bother me, right? It's an awkward conversation to have with a dead person, right? And Saul answered, I am sore distressed, for the Philistines make war against me, and God is departed from me and answereth me no more. How sad. Neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore I have called thee, that thou mayest make known unto me what I shall do. I need to know what to do. Which is what he says. Then said Samuel, wherefore then dost thou ask of me? Seeing the Lord is departed from thee and is become thine enemy. Why are you asking thee? God left you and is now against you. He's your enemy. And the Lord hath done to him as he spake by me. What's happening is exactly what I said would happen. So this leads me to believe this is the real Samuel, because he's like, look, I told you this was going to happen. Why are you bothering me? I'm not going to tell you what to do. God's against you, right? So he's telling him all the truth, right? And the Lord hath done to him as he spake by me, for the Lord hath rent or torn the kingdom out of thine hand and given it to thy neighbor, even to David, because thou obeyest not the voice of the Lord, nor executest his fierce wrath upon Amalek. It all goes back to that first story when week 1, the Amalekites. He didn't wipe them out, and he lied about it, and he made excuses about it, and all this kind of stuff. Therefore hath the Lord done this thing unto thee this day. Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with thee into the hand of the Philistines. So Samuel says, look, guess what? There's a war coming with the Philistines, and guess what? You're going to lose. And he's going to deliver Israel in the hand of the Philistines and you. And tomorrow, here's the capper for me. Watch this. And tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me. That's why I think it is Samuel, because he tells Saul, he's going to die tomorrow, and you're going to be what? Where I'm at. Okay? All of this and the conversation, the details, I think it's Samuel. So, and tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me. The Lord also shall deliver the host of Israel into the hand of the Philistines. Then Saul fell straightway all along on the earth. I bet he did. And was sore afraid because of the words of Samuel. But there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no bread all day nor all night. He'd been starving himself, crying out to God, couldn't get him. Got to a point of going and consulting a witch. Think about that. And the woman, the witch, came unto Saul. Now, I don't know about you. That's how I read the Bible. Like Saul's laying there and then a witch sneaks up behind you. I'm like, I'm like on pins and needles. Like I don't do witches, okay? Here we go. And the woman came unto Saul and saw that he was sore troubled and said unto him, behold, thine handmaid hath obeyed thy voice, and I have put my life in my hand and have hearkened unto thy words, which thou spakest unto me. Now, therefore, I pray thee, hearken thou also unto the voice of thine handmaid, and let me set a morsel of bread before thee and eat, that thou mayest have strength when thou goest on thy way. So now she's like, look, you spared my life. I did this for you and all that kind of stuff. Let me cook for you. And I'm like, no, I don't want no witch's brew, right? I don't want you cooking for me, right? She's got a cauldron over there and she's like stirring it up. Like, right? She's green. She's got a black hat. Now, picture it, right? That's probably how it happened, right? I don't know. But he refused. I would have too. And said, I will not eat. But his servants together with the woman compelled him, and he hearkened unto her voice. So he arose from the earth and sat upon the bed. And the woman had a fat calf in the house, and she hasted and killed it, and took flour and kneaded it, and did bake unleavened bread thereof. And she brought it before Saul and before his servants, and they did eat. And they rose up and went away that night. So she feeds him. She has a fat calf. It doesn't say it, but in the Hebrew, she also has a black cat. Okay, I don't know about that. But she feeds him and goes on its way. So now we're setting ourselves up for the battle, right? The battle that is about to come. And in the next week when we pick up, we're going to cover Saul and his death and the death of his son Jonathan, okay? We are going to cover the what happens to Saul. They kill him on the mountains of Gilboa. They take his body and they put it on the wall of a place called Bet Shean. Okay, Bet Shean. That was one of the most fascinating places when I was in Israel a couple years ago, going to Bet Shean, because I didn't put two and two together that Bet Shean. You read your Bible all your life. I knew Saul died, right? We're going to talk about it. But then I didn't even pick up what they did with his body after, and I got to go to that ancient city and climb up on that hill and just look out where his body would have been fastened against the wall and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's crazy to see this. If you ever get a chance to go to the Holy Land, do it, okay, when it's safe, right? But it will add perspective to your Bible. You will read it and you'll be like, holy cow, this is where that happened, this is where that happened. And it just adds so much to it. But we're going to leave it there tonight. It's 8 o'clock. Father, go with us and help us. We sure do love you and we need you. And Lord, we just come to you tonight. And thank you for David. Thank you for his testimony. Thank you for his strength, his leadership. And Father, all that he can teach us and all that he can teach us to do and not to do. And Father, we just pray that we will be mindful of you, that we'll put you first in our lives, that we'll follow you, that we'll do the right things no matter what in our lives, that we will not take the easy way out, that we will not do the wrong thing and make excuses for it, but that we will do what is right as people and your children. Help us, Lord, we pray, and go with us in Jesus' name. Amen.